David, if no one saw college football this weekend and you were going to try to sum it up, how would you sum up what happened this weekend?
Apocalypse. I mean, I don't know how you sum it up, Dan. I mean, it's crazy to think about. You always try to look for one or two upsets, and I think people pointed to Washington, USC playing great football, and that could happen. But to point to Pitt beating Clemson, and to point to Iowa beating Michigan after getting just absolutely put on Penn State's shoe a week ago, and then I think A&M and Auburn less surprising, but just crazy. And 2, 3, 4 going down in one weekend hadn't been done since 1985, and so it was a historic weekend for sure.
All right, the loss that you kind of expected with the top-ranked teams was what?
Washington. I think they played the best team, and I think a lot of people had a lot that they wanted to see about Washington. And I was, quite frankly, we talked about Jake Browning. He was number 2 in the Heisman quote-unquote polls. Mm-hmm. He was the number 2 best quarterback on the field on Saturday.
That's true.
And that was a fact. I mean, Sam Darnold was better than him. He outplayed him, bought time consistently, just plays with great poise, has great mobility. And USC, defensively, I think that was the biggest surprise. I knew they could score points, but I didn't think their defense could hold a Washington offense that's been doing whatever they wanted to, and they deemed their running game useless and then shut down Jake Browning from that point on, too.
How many teams have a legitimate chance for the top 4 spots?
From here on in,
yeah.
I think that from here on in, I think there's 4 teams from the Big Ten. I think it's Ohio State. I think it's Michigan. I think it's Wisconsin. I think it's Penn State. I think from the Big 12, you have to start looking at them now, and you have to look at OU, and you have to look at West Virginia. From the Pac-12, I think you got Washington and you got Utah. SEC, believe this or not, you got one team, and that's Bama. Mm-hmm. And then I think you got Louisville and Clemson from the ACC. So you've dwindled it down, but I still think there's obviously a lot of madness and a lot of drama. And how do you handle the Penn State thing? That's going to be the biggest thing I'm looking at moving forward. Is if Ohio State does beat Michigan, which they have to do to go to the college football playoff, that puts Penn State in the Big Ten title game. So Penn State's going to be looking there going, wait, we won the Big Ten. Hold on a minute. We beat Ohio State. How are you going to put them in over us? And that's what's going to be nuts, man. I can't wait to see what the committee does Tuesday night anyways, because they've already kind of opened themselves up for criticism, but we got a fun ride the rest of the way.
Well, Penn State's got Rutgers and Michigan State left, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's 1 in 13 in conference play, and those combined right there. Or 1 in 13. So it's not pretty. They should win both of those games. Now I'll say this. I don't think Penn State's a top 10 team. I don't think they're one of the top teams in the country. I think they have serious holes on the offensive line. You saw Indiana. They turned the ball over 4 times in the first half in that game. Otherwise, they probably win. But Penn State's going to be in the equation, even though, remember, if you go back, they lost 49-10 to Michigan. They got beat down pretty good. So,
does the committee factor in having the Heisman Trophy winner involved in this? And with Louisville, is that factor in at all? This is a TV show. It's a reality show. We can call it whatever we want. They want the best teams in there that are going to get the best ratings.
Yeah, but okay, Dan. Here's the thing. Who's to say that what the top team is? Because right now it's a crapshoot, right? I mean, there's a lot of options and there's a lot of choices. So why on earth would you? And this is my thought process, and why Louisville's in my top 4. Mm-hmm. If it's coming down to everybody's kind of jumbled together, Alabama's separated themselves. Everybody else is kind of like, okay, I can point to a flaw here or there. There's only one player that's the best player in college football, and there's no denying that. Mm-hmm. And that's number 8 at Louisville. And so I think when it boils down to it, they play great defense. They have a great offense. They have the best, most explosive, most dynamic player in college football. So I'd love to see him in the Final Four. And if they're the 4th seed and they're taking on Bama, Nick Saban ain't going to be happy. I can promise you that.
Yeah, and I love that. But I know that we want to give the impression that we're factoring strength of schedule, margin of victory, conference, everything. I just wonder with Louisville and his excitement, it's like when Michael Vick was going crazy at Virginia Tech. Man, I wanted to see him, and we didn't have a Final Four, but I wanted to see him in the mix there, and that's the way I feel about Louisville and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, but again, it's only if all things are created equal. If there's a team that's above them with a much better resume, and you can say that's clear cut, I'm fine with that. But still, Washington, Dan, they beat Stanford, right?
Yeah.
Their best win is Utah. They lost to USC. Okay, I'm more impressed with Louisville beating the brakes off of FSU than I am with Washington and what I've seen, and then what I just saw against USC. So I have no problem, even if Washington wins out. I have no problem if Lamar Jackson and Louisville go in that 4th spot over a Washington.
Is it a down year for the SEC, or is it they're just, perception-wise, or is it they're just they're all sort of there at being competitive good teams or sort of good teams, and then you have one great one?
Now, I think you got one great team, and then I think everybody else is kind of just jumbled together. Now, I do think LSU, since the coaching change, is a different team, and you saw that 10-0 game at home with Alabama. It was super impressive. So I think LSU's really good, but I think there's a lot of Arkansas, for example. Arkansas's lost to before this week, lost to 3 top 10 teams, and then lost to LSU. The days where SEC was head and shoulders above everybody isn't the case. I mean, not at all. And you look at the Big Ten; they got 4 teams that are in the playoff conversation still. So, I mean, I definitely say you can think that you can look at SEC and you can look at them and say that they're not near as dominant as they used to be.
Before I let you go, game day will be at Western Michigan. Let people behind the curtain here of, how do you come up with Western Michigan as opposed to, I don't know, pick another spot, West Virginia?
Okay, West Virginia, Oklahoma, which would be an awesome scene. Well, first of all, Dan, to be perfectly clear, I don't have a say in anything. I don't control.
Has anybody ever asked you your opinion, David, on where college?
Lord, no. Why would they ask my opinion? I'm the last guy probably on the game day set that would have any say in any of that. Definitely the least tenured. So
who has veto power? If I said Herbie or Reese Davis, now I know Fowler had some veto power, but if Herbie or Reese Davis said we're not going or we are going, who carries the most weight?
Who carries the? I'm going to lean to number 4 at the end of the desk over there. Herbie. He's got some tenure, man. He's got some full depth. But you know what? It's kind of cool, Dan. When we do these, last year we did, James Madison, and that was the most memorable stop along the way last year. We did North Dakota State the year before. The most memorable stop along the way. It is really cool for us because Alabama's kind of like, John, like, y'all are supposed to be here, dude. Like, we're the king of the crop. Like, yeah, y'all come to us. And when you have a team like Western Michigan, who's got a great season, a superstar coach in the making with Pollack, I think they accept you a lot more. It's a lot more fun. They're excited. The adrenaline's going. There'll be a crazy turnout. So these are fun, but to be clear, I have zero say in anything to do with college games.
Western Michigan's turnout is going to be unbelievable. And that's why when you bring up North Dakota State or James Madison, they realize it's a one and done. You may never get back there again. Your opportunity to go out, have fun, show your school colors, bring a sign or two. So I'm sure that they're gonna do a great job. What's the one crowd where you got a little nervous?
Oh, the one crowd. I'll tell you this. I took my son with me a couple weeks ago to LSU because I take him with me every other week if I can. My wife obviously won't let me check him out of school every Friday, but I'm like, forget school. Anyways, that's a side note. So I took him to LSU, and that was probably to me the most vulgar crowd. Like you got the guys in the front just with signs saying I'm going back to prison and yelling curse words and it's a crazy, crazy atmosphere and crazy things happen in Baton Rouge. So that's one of the scariest where you worry for your life a little bit on what's coming up on the set.
Yeah, and then your son comes home. He has new words to tell mom all about that he learned in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, and that gives me a good chance for bringing him the next week, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Mom, I learned what this means. This means.
Hey, David, great to talk to you again. Safe travels. Thanks for joining us.
I appreciate it, Dan.
That's David Pollack.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.